Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for stopping by. I'm Letha with Ribbons and Zippers, and today I am going to be finishing up a wedding dress alteration. These are tips and techniques that I think that you're going to love. The dress is very formal, is fully lined, and the entire hem is enclosed with horsehair braid. Now, horsehair braid is a flexible woven mesh that mostly is made out of nylon, but is used to add volume and structure to the hem of the dress. The dress that I'm altering today has what is called a bagged hem, which not only encases the horsehair braid inside of the dress so that it's very comfortable for any bride, but the clean finish of this technique is elegant and very high-end. So today I am going to be hemming the dress to my client's desired hem length. I'm only going to be cutting off some length from the front of the dress while keeping the rest of the train intact. So I'm going from the front of the dress to a little bit past the side seam. And like I said, I'll be leaving the train alone. And I'm going to show you some techniques of how the bagged hem is done. If this is a technique that you would like to master, stick with me and I'll show you how it's done. I am going to be taking this much off of the dress, about 4 inches off the dress, just the front part. I'm only going to take it to the side seams, and the side seams, as you can see, I will be taking a lot more off. Okay, so for the dress I am going to be making some marks. So here what I've done is I've made a mark, very small. So what I'm going to do is just to make sure that I can use my pins, and these are friction pins. They're erasable, but they're perfect when you want to draw lines. I made a mark that's ever so small, and I just want to make sure that it's going to erase with the heat of the iron. So it's just that little piece of fabric with the marking on. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it can be erased. But I'm going to double check. It's always better to be safe than sorry. So I'm good. So here is my pin. This is the floor. So it's pinned to where the bride wants it to hit the top of her foot or her shoe. Is very close to the floor. And so what I do is I'm going to put a pin at my floor level, just inside of the fold. Here's my pin, and I went ahead and I put a pin at my side seam as well. So what I'm going to do now is get some pins and taper along all the way to my side seam on both sides, and I'll come back and I'll show you. So here's my pins. I started from the middle of the dress. So what I've done was I made a path with the straight pins. Make sure that the pins are very sharp if you're going to do this, so that you won't leave holes in the wedding dress. And the pins give me a path. So here's my path of pins on my dress. So what I'm going to do is just follow my pins with the line all the way down to my hem, and this is where I curved it out. So I will show you. I started from the middle, and then I just tapered all the way down, all the way out to the bottom. past the side seam, and I'm just going to follow that. That's going to be my hem. Now once I cut this off, I'm going to use it to do the same thing on the other side, to take the measurements, and they're the same. So just want to show you here the hem of what's going on here. This is what we call horsehair braid. So the horsehair braid is in between the dress and the lining. This is the lining, but this is the horsehair braid. And so what I have to do is move that horsehair braid up, move it up so that it matches the new hem. And I have to do that from the inside. All right. So here's my mark. First, I was going to do an inch. So this is an inch. And I realized that that's too much, because based on the hem, so based on the hem is just a 1/4 of an inch. On one side is rolled, so it's a 1/4 of an inch and a 1/4 of an inch, because it's attached to the horsehair braid. So here's the horsehair braid. I already started opening up the hem, and this is my horsehair braid, and as you can see, it's attached to the lining as well as the dress. Is folded twice, and we get a 1/4 inch hem. Okay, so the mark is a 1/2 of an inch down from my floor, and as I was measuring my floor, this is my floor, I needed to put a mark. So the red pin is where we still have the floor, but I realized that I need to taper this, start tapering it down, because I didn't want to have a complete drop. So here's my side seam. This is the floor, and I needed to continue to just go ahead and taper it down to nothing on the train. So as you can see, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue, because I have to remove the horsehair braid only up to where I'm going to start tapering, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the horsehair braid to the lining. So I started opening up the hem, so I'm just going to continue opening it all the way to where I tapered off, and I'm not going to remove the horsehair braid completely. I'm just going to move it up. I may need to adjust the horsehair braid, but we'll see when we get there. Okay, so this is where I'm going to cut all the way across, and I opened up my seam. This was my hem. So here's where I opened it up all the way down. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut along the 1/2 inch line and make sure to keep my horsehair braid out of the way. Okay, and I'm just going to very carefully cut only the dress, not the lining right now, just the dress. So I have all these pins that marked my floor, and I have them going to the other side of the dress. And I am going to keep those pins there because that's going to be my guide for where I'm going to make my lining. That's where I'm going to cut my lining, because I want my lining to be just about 1/4 of an inch above the dress. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just go ahead, be very careful. Very carefully, just only cut the dress. So I'm going to cut along this line. And my fingers are under here, making sure that I don't, so I'm keeping my hand under to protect it from the lining. Okay, and just cut all the way to the end. Okay, so here we have it. Here's the horsehair braid that's inside, and as I mentioned, I kept my pins in. I cut a 1/2 inch down from, this is where we determined she wanted her hem to be. So I'm going to sew the horsehair braid back onto my lining only at the 1/2 inch mark, and then I'm going to enclose it the same way it's done on the same way it was already originally done. Okay, so now that I have that piece taken off, what I'm going to do is, starting from my side seam, I'm just matching up the piece that I've taken off, and I'm going to match it up so I'll know where to taper off. It'll be the exact same spot. I'm going to go ahead and pin all the way across, and I'm going to double check from the waist down to make sure it's the exact same inches all the way down. Remember, my hem is 1/2 of an inch up from the line that we cut so that we can fold it over 2 times. It's going to be a 1/2 inch seam folded into half, which makes 1/4 of an inch fold. So what we're going to do is I'm going to measure up that 1/2 of an inch from the line to the pin, and I'm just going to go ahead and just put a pin. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that my lining is nice and flushed there. And so I'm just going to measure up a 1/2 of an inch, and then I'm going to just go ahead and put a pin right there so that I could keep that lining going. That's going to be where I'm going to cut my lining. Okay, so I'm just going to do that all the way across. Just measure up 1/2 of an inch, and so this is nice and flushed up against the fabric. The lining is flat. As you can see, the lining is nice and flat. It's right up against the fabric. And I'm doing this on my ironing board, so I have a 1/2 of an inch up, put my pin. It doesn't have to be so close to each other. It can be moved further apart. I can actually feel that I have my lining in place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that all the way across till I get to the end. And then what I'm going to do is just make a little mark. It doesn't have to be a line like over there. And then I'm just going to cut this off. Okay guys, so I am being very, very careful with the horsehair braid. So this is my horsehair braid. Just want to show you. It's attached very securely to the dress into the lining. And I don't want to cut it, I don't want to stretch it, because I'm going to be using this horsehair braid to move it up. So I am going to have to go all the way along the whole hem and detach the horsehair braid. So I'm going to just take my time and use my seam ripper. And remember, one important thing is when you're using a seam ripper, even though I have all of this space to work with, I still want to work away from the dress. So when I'm ripping, I want to rip to either towards me or out and towards me, because I don't want to make a mistake while I do not want to poke the fashion fabric. I just want to detach the horsehair braid from the lining and the dress, because I don't want to cut it. All right, so I'm going to do that all the way to the end, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay guys, so I started basting my horsehair braid to the lining. So the lining, I cut the lining the same as the dress, because remember, I'm going to sew the lining to the dress and then roll it, but I'll show you how to do that. But the reason why I'm basting is because I'm going to need to take the dress over to my sewing machine, and I want to rule out as many pins as possible. And another thing about basting the hem to the dress, remember, is that the horsehair braid stretches. So be careful if you're basting. Do not pull, do not stretch the horsehair braid. Do not pull or do not stress. Do not pull or do not stretch the lining. Just let it all fall naturally while you're basting. So I'm going to go ahead and baste this all the way across without pulling, no pulling and no stretching of the lining or the horsehair braid. All right, so just, you can base it any way you like. I'd like to put a little back stitch and then go forward as I'm going, because I think it holds better. So I'll put a little back stitch and then go forward, and I'm going to take out these pins. They're there. I don't want to work at my sewing machine with a lot of pins. All right. Okay, so we don't stretch. Again, we don't stretch the horsehair braid and we don't stretch the lining, and we're just as careful. Just let it fall naturally. That's all. Let it fall naturally. Okay, so now that I have my basting stitch all along my lining, I've basted my horsehair braid to the lining. I just want to show you, this is the end of my taper right here. And as you can see, I'm going to show you on the other side of the dress. This is the top stitching, but I need to now attach my fabric. This is the dress. This is the lining and the horsehair. So I need to match my dress all the way around, and I'm going to take my time and make a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, making sure that I match the seams. Here's the side seam here, and both side seams to match together. And I'm just going to go all the way around and make a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to do that nice and easily. So how am I going to do that? So since the lining is on the inside of the dress, what I need to do is turn the dress inside out so that I can get to that lining. So I turned my dress into itself, like turning it into a sock. So this is the outside of the dress. This is the inside of the fabric. This is the wrong side. This is the right side. This is my horsehair braid. And so I'm going to bring this up a little bit closer so you can see. What I'm going to do is very meticulously, I'm going to match the edge of my dress to the edge of my lining and to the edge of the horsehair braid. And I am going to make a 1/4 inch seam all the way across. And I'm going to push the dress back out of the hole. All right, let's go. Okay, so now that I've sewn my 1/4 inch seam all along, so this is my horsehair braid. This is the side where the dress is. This is the horsehair braid. This is my lining side, and this is my 1/4 inch seam all the way along the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my basting. So right now the dress is enclosed inside the lining. I need to turn it out. So what I'm going to do is open up the seam of my lining. I'm going to make a big enough opening so I could turn it inside out, and then I'm going to be able to top stitch my hem. But this is my side seam. So in order to get to the hem on the inside, I need to go through the side seam. So I'm just going to open up my side seam with my seam ripper. And of course, as you know, we can always sew this back together. We can always sew it from the inside or the outside, doesn't matter. We're just trying to get to the hem. All right, so once we open it, we got to make a big enough opening. Make sure your opening is big enough. All right, so this looks big enough. Okay, so once I have my opening, and here is everything that I sewed in, the dress, everything is in there. I am going to I need my opening to be big enough so I can lay everything flat on my sewing machine, because then remember, I'm going to top stitch this. I want my hem to end up looking just like that. So here's the top stitch, okay? So I'm going to continue that top stitch all the way across, but I need to be able to put my dress on my sewing machine. I have to open up this side seam wide enough to flatten out my hem on my sewing machine. All right, so let's do that, and then we'll go ahead and turn it the right way and close it up. All right, so here is my hem. All right, this is where I'm going to start. So this is all of the hem that I'm going to top stitch, and this is the one that's already done. So I'm just going to just go along and top stitch. Okay, it's like about 1/8 of an inch away. Okay, this is the lining and this is the dress, and I'm just going to top stitch all the way from where I started, from one taper to the other taper. All right. So once you are finished top stitching, close up the lining opening that we created and press, and you're done. So that's it for today. And if you like learning all of these tips and techniques to elevate your sewing skills, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so that you are reminded every time I do tips and techniques and videos that are just for you. Thank you for watching.